If you're trying to lower your carbs, stabilize your blood sugar, burn fat more efficiently, and protect your metabolic health, the foods you choose matter more than calories ever will. Today, I'm walking you through the top 10 low-carb foods you must eat if you want your body working with you, not against you. When you eat, your body is not counting calories first. It is listening to signals, and the loudest signal of all is blood sugar. Every bite you take sends a chemical message into your bloodstream, and when that message is sugar, insulin answers immediately. Insulin is not a villain, but it is powerful, and power used too often becomes destructive. Research shows that repeated insulin spikes lock fat inside fat cells, shut down fat burning, and quietly push the body toward diabetes years before blood sugar numbers ever look abnormal. Here's the shocking part most people don't realize. You can be gaining weight, exhausted, and inflamed even when your blood sugar tests still look normal. Studies reveal that insulin resistance can begin a decade before prediabetes is diagnosed. That means the damage is already happening long before the warning labels show up. And the fastest way to accelerate that damage is a diet built around high carbohydrate foods that constantly demand insulin. Low-carb foods change that message entirely. When carbohydrates are reduced, blood glucose rises more slowly or barely at all, and insulin is released in smaller, more controlled amounts. This matters because insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It is a storage hormone. Every time insulin spikes, your body receives one clear instruction: stop burning fat and start storing it. No amount of calorie cutting can override that command. Clinical research confirms this again and again. In controlled trials, people eating low-carbohydrate diets experience greater reductions in insulin levels than those eating low-fat diets, even when calories are the same. This explains a truth that frustrates millions. Two people can eat the same number of calories, but the one with lower insulin will lose fat while the other stores it. Biology always beats math. High insulin doesn't just affect weight, it silently damages blood vessels, increases inflammation, and disrupts hormone signaling throughout the body. Elevated insulin has been linked to heart disease, fatty liver, polycystic ovarian syndrome, Alzheimer's disease, and even certain cancers. Some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes because of its strong connection to insulin resistance in the brain. Low-carb foods interrupt this destructive cycle. By minimizing glucose spikes, they allow insulin levels to fall, sometimes dramatically. When insulin drops, something powerful happens. The body regains access to stored fat. Fat cells finally open their doors. Energy becomes available again. Hunger hormones begin to normalize. This is why people often report reduced appetite on low-carb diets without trying to eat less. It's not willpower, it's physiology. There's also a metabolic reset taking place at the cellular level. Lower insulin improves mitochondrial function, allowing cells to generate energy more efficiently. Research shows that stable blood sugar reduces oxidative stress, the cellular damage that accelerates aging and chronic disease. In other words, stabilizing blood sugar doesn't just change your weight, it changes how fast your body wears out. Another overlooked benefit is brain health. The brain relies on steady fuel, not sugar spikes and crashes. Studies using brain imaging show that fluctuating glucose impairs cognitive performance, memory, and focus. Low-carb diets stabilize energy delivery to the brain, often leading to sharper thinking, better mood, and fewer energy crashes throughout the day. What makes this even more powerful is how quickly the body responds. In some studies, insulin sensitivity improves within days of reducing carbohydrate intake. Fatty liver markers improve in weeks. Triglycerides drop rapidly. These are not subtle changes. They are measurable, clinically significant shifts that occur without medication. The modern diet keeps insulin elevated from morning until night. Breakfast cereals spike glucose. Lunch sandwiches repeat the pattern. Snacks keep insulin high in between. By evening, the body has spent an entire day in fat storage mode. Low-carb foods break this pattern. They create space between insulin releases. They give the body time to repair, reset, and burn fuel the way it was designed to. This is why people who stabilize blood sugar often describe feeling normal for the first time in years. They're not fighting cravings every 2 hours. They're not crashing in the afternoon. They're not white-knuckling hunger. Their hormones are finally aligned with their goals. And here's the most important truth. This is not about perfection. It's about direction. Every low-carb choice reduces the insulin burden on your body. Every stabilized blood sugar curve protects your cells from damage. Over time, those small decisions compound into massive health shifts. The science is clear, the data is overwhelming, and the results are visible in real people every day. Stabilize blood sugar, lower insulin, and the body does the rest. This is not a trend. This is how human metabolism works when it's no longer under constant attack. Hunger is not a character flaw, and metabolism is not broken by laziness. It is governed by biology, hormones, and survival instincts written into human DNA. For decades, people were told to eat less and move more, yet obesity and metabolic disease exploded worldwide. The reason is simple and devastating. When the body is underfed protein and healthy fats, it panics. And a panicked body does not lose weight, it hoards energy. Scientific research now confirms what many feel every day. Chronic hunger is a hormonal emergency, not a lack of discipline. Protein is the single most powerful macronutrient for metabolic control. Studies consistently show that protein triggers the release of satiety hormones like peptide YY and GLP-1 while suppressing ghrelin, the hormone that screams, "Eat now." When protein intake is adequate, hunger quiets down naturally. In fact, controlled trials demonstrate that people eating higher protein diets spontaneously consume fewer calories without being told to restrict food. The body stops begging when it finally gets what it needs. But protein does more than control hunger. It protects your metabolism. Every pound of muscle you lose lowers your metabolic rate, making future weight gain more likely. Research shows that insufficient protein during weight loss leads to muscle breakdown, slowing metabolism, and increasing fatigue. This is why so many people regain weight after dieting. They didn't just lose fat, they lost the very tissue that burns calories. Protein preserves lean mass, keeps metabolism active, and allows fat loss without metabolic collapse. Healthy fats play an equally critical role, and this is where decades of nutritional fear caused real harm. Fat does not make you fat. Chronically elevated insulin does. Dietary fat barely raises insulin at all, which means it allows the body to access stored fat for energy. When healthy fats are present, meals digest more slowly, blood sugar rises more gently, and satiety lasts longer. This is not theory. It's physiology measured in lab studies and metabolic wards. One shocking finding from nutrition science is that fat contains more than twice the calories per gram of carbohydrates, yet consistently leads to greater fullness. This is because fat activates stretch receptors in the stomach and signals the brain that energy is abundant. When fat is removed from the diet, people don't eat less. They eat more, chasing satisfaction that never arrives. This endless hunger loop is not willpower failure. It's hormonal deprivation. The brain itself is largely made of fat, and it requires fat-derived compounds to function optimally. Omega-3 fatty acids, for example, are essential for cell membrane integrity and neurotransmitter signaling. Studies link adequate fat intake to improved mood, reduced inflammation, and better cognitive performance. When fat intake is too low, the brain perceives danger, increasing stress hormones like cortisol, which directly promote fat storage, especially around the abdomen. Protein and fat together form a metabolic alliance. Protein builds and repairs tissue, while fat provides stable energy. When eaten together, they create meals that sustain the body for hours, without blood sugar crashes. This is why people who shift to protein and fat-focused eating often report something extraordinary. They forget to eat, not because they're forcing themselves, but because their hunger signals finally make sense. From a metabolic standpoint, protein has the highest thermic effect of food, meaning the body burns more calories digesting protein than carbs or fat. Up to 30% of protein's calories are used just to process it. That's free metabolic work happening automatically. Fat, meanwhile, trains the body to burn fat by supplying it. This metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between fuels, is a hallmark of metabolic health and longevity. The modern low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet does the opposite. It floods the bloodstream with glucose, spikes insulin, suppresses fat burning, and leaves the body hungry again within hours. This creates a cycle of constant eating that never satisfies cellular energy demands. The result is a population that eats frequently, gains weight easily, and feels tired all the time. This is not normal, it's nutritional mismanagement. Research from ketogenic and low-carbohydrate studies reveals something deeply important. When protein is adequate and fats are not feared, resting energy expenditure often remains stable or even increases during fat loss. That means the body does not downshift into starvation mode. Instead, it feels safe enough to let go of stored fat. Safety, not scarcity, is what convinces the body to release weight. There is also a powerful hormonal ripple effect. Adequate fat intake supports the production of sex hormones, adrenal hormones, and vitamin absorption. Vitamins A, D, E, and K cannot be absorbed without fat. Deficiencies in these nutrients are linked to immune dysfunction, bone loss, depression, and fatigue. Cutting fat doesn't just cut calories, it cuts off essential biological processes. The most emotionally striking evidence comes from real-world outcomes. People who prioritize protein and healthy fats report freedom from food obsession. They stop counting calories. They stop bargaining with hunger. Their energy stabilizes. Their confidence returns. This is not because they became stronger, it's because their biology stopped fighting them. At its core, metabolism responds to nourishment, not punishment. Protein tells the body it is safe to maintain muscle and strength. Healthy fats tell the body that energy is available and there is no need to cling to reserves. Together, they restore trust between the brain and the body, a trust that modern dieting shattered. When satiety is restored, everything changes. Meals become satisfying, cravings lose their power, metabolism stops shrinking in self-defense, and fat loss becomes a natural side effect, not a daily battle. This is the truth hidden beneath decades of diet confusion. Feed the body what it truly needs, and it will finally work with you, not against you. Change does not come from one perfect day, one flawless meal, or one burst of motivation that fades by morning. It comes from repetition so small it feels insignificant, yet powerful enough to rewire human biology over time. The body does not remember what you ate once. It remembers what you eat most often. Research in metabolic science shows that hormones, enzymes, gut bacteria, and even gene expression respond to patterns, not moments. And this is where most people fail because they are chasing perfection instead of consistency. One missed workout, one high-carb meal, one stressful day convinces them they failed, yet the body never asked for perfection. It asked for predictability. Studies on insulin sensitivity reveal that even modest, repeated improvements in blood sugar control dramatically reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes over time, while occasional spikes do far less damage than chronic daily ones. In other words, it's not the birthday cake that breaks metabolism, it's the everyday habits that quietly shape it. The human body adapts relentlessly to what it encounters most. When low-carb, whole foods are eaten consistently, the pancreas learns to release less insulin, cells regain sensitivity, and fat-burning pathways stay active longer each day. Research shows that metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between glucose and fat for fuel, improves not through extreme dieting, but through repeated exposure to stable blood sugar environments. This is why people who eat well most days feel better even when they're not perfect. Their bodies have learned a new normal. The opposite is also true, and it's unsettling. Chronic inconsistency keeps the body in metabolic confusion, never fully adapting, always defending, always holding on to fat just in case. One of the most shocking findings in behavioral nutrition is that willpower plays a far smaller role than routine. Brain imaging studies show that habits shift decision-making from the prefrontal cortex, which requires effort, to the basal ganglia, where actions become automatic. This means consistent choices reduce mental fatigue, while perfection-based dieting increases it. When people try to be perfect, they rely on constant self-control, and self-control is biologically expensive. Cortisol rises, cravings intensify, and relapse becomes almost inevitable. Consistency, on the other hand, lowers stress hormones and makes healthy behavior easier over time, not harder. Even the gut microbiome responds to repetition. Beneficial bacteria that improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation thrive on regular exposure to fiber, healthy fats, and protein. Studies show that gut bacteria populations can shift in as little as 2 weeks, but only if dietary patterns are stable. One healthy meal does nothing. 10 similar meals begin to change the ecosystem, and that ecosystem sends signals back to the brain that influence hunger, mood, and even motivation. This means consistency doesn't just change the body, it changes the voice in your head that decides what you want to eat. Weight loss research repeatedly confirms a hard truth. People who succeed long-term are not more disciplined. They are more predictable. They eat similar meals, follow simple routines, and don't constantly experiment. This predictability allows hormones like leptin and insulin to recalibrate. Leptin resistance, a major driver of obesity, improves when the body receives steady signals of nourishment instead of chaotic swings between restriction and overeating. The body stops fearing famine, and a body that doesn't fear famine stops storing fat. There's also a powerful psychological effect at play. Consistency builds trust. Every time you follow through on a small promise to yourself, the brain releases dopamine, not from pleasure, but from progress. This reinforces behavior far more effectively than dramatic short-term results. Perfectionism, by contrast, trains the brain to associate health with failure, because perfection is impossible. Neuroscience shows that repeated perceived failure reduces motivation circuits and increases avoidance behavior. This is why people quit, not because they don't care, but because their brain learns that effort leads to disappointment. Perhaps the most overlooked fact is how forgiving the human body actually is when consistency is present. Studies on metabolic health show that improvements in blood pressure, triglycerides, and insulin sensitivity persist even when adherence is not absolute. The body responds to averages, not exceptions. 80% consistency over months beats 100% adherence for a week. This is not motivational talk, it's statistical biology. Real transformation happens quietly. It looks boring. It looks like choosing eggs instead of cereal most mornings, walking after dinner more often than not, drinking water instead of soda without thinking about it. Over time, these choices lower baseline insulin, reduce systemic inflammation, and improve mitochondrial efficiency. Mitochondria multiply in response to repeated demand, not occasional effort. More mitochondria mean more energy, better aging, and greater resilience against disease. This is how longevity is built, slowly, invisibly, relentlessly. The tragedy is that people quit right before the body fully adapts. Research shows that metabolic improvements often lag behind behavior changes by weeks or months. This delay tricks people into thinking nothing is working, when in reality, the foundation is being laid. Consistency bridges that gap. It keeps the signal strong long enough for the body to respond. In the end, health is not a performance, it's a practice. The body doesn't reward intensity, it rewards reliability. Every consistent choice is a vote for a future version of yourself that has more energy, fewer cravings, and a metabolism that finally feels like an ally. This is the secret no one sells because it isn't dramatic, but it is devastatingly effective. Do the simple things often enough, long enough, and the body will change in ways perfection never could.